This week, the very first trailer for Avengers Doomsday was released. A trailer that set the second biggest 24-hour view record with over 500 million views. Yes, just a few weeks after Spider-Man Brand New Day, which simply crushed everything with its billion views. Records for the next two MCU projects. And let me remind you, it's supposedly completely dead. Well, according to some movie critics and YouTubers. But beyond these records, what are we left with? Well, some nasty lies. Yes, Marvel is lying to you. It's not the first time. And I'm telling you, you absolutely didn't understand the Doomsday trailer. Well, when I say you, I include myself as well. Because I, just like you, was surprised to see this trailer come out of nowhere. Except that at that moment, I was in Los Angeles and it was 6 a.m. for me. So let me tell you, I missed a lot of things too, but that was before. Because since then, I've rewatched every frame of that trailer, every detail, every shadow. And believe me, Marvel totally confused us. In fact, this trailer doesn't reflect what the movie is at all. And that's why, dear friends, we're entering the spoiler zone, the danger zone. In this video, we'll put everything back in order and tie all of this to all the leaks, all the rumors, all the theories to finally foil the evil plans of Kevin Feige, including the mega surprise he's saving for us during the Hall H panel at Comic-Con, where I am right now, a new trailer. You're with Kevin Buckard, your favorite theorist's favorite theorist. Roll the intro. Lies and leaks. So Marvel shared with us this Monday the exact same trailer they showed a few weeks ago at an exclusive CinemaCon panel. The exact same one except for one detail. Loki and the famous TVA card. A detail that matters since this detail confirms one of the most surprising leaks of recent months. A leak that I've always told you I hate. The one that claims Loki moved or at least met Steve and his family while he was just an agent of the TVA. So, right in the middle of season 2 of his own series. A rather strange addition to say the least. While Marvel is doing absolutely everything to avoid it right away, they decide to add these two shots to a trailer that's already 3 months old. A trailer that doesn't seem to have changed at all, even down to the unfinished special effects. Strange, because with this addition, Marvel seems to confirm all the leaks that came with it. Namely, that Steve is responsible for the death of Doom's family, that he was moved into the Fantastic Four universe, and many others that we will discuss in this video. But above all, with this trailer, Marvel continued a tradition that dates back to Infinity War. Namely, faking its trailers so as not to reveal too much. The two most concrete examples are actually from Infinity War, with the presence of Hulk in the last shot, and from Spider-Man: No Way Home, where the two Spideys were erased from this shot. Or even more recently, with the Doomsday teaser with the Wakandans, where the murder wall wasn't present. Well, at the very least, there's nothing shocking about that, but you'll see that it has an impact for what's coming next. But above all, they love to mix scenes to send us chasing false leads. For example, in the Infinity War trailer, they make us believe that Gamora is talking with Stark.
Tell me his name again.
Thanos. So, why am I telling you this? First, as you've seen all over the internet, Doom was probably removed from most of the shots to keep us guessing about his true intentions. But above all, many scenes around the X-Men mansion were mixed up to manipulate us, to hide the true nature of what's really going on. Namely, the way Doom is actually going to be used in this movie. Because here, he's shown as the ultimate villain. But as we know, he's not a Thanos or an Ultron. Doom is the perfect anti-hero, complex, superior, morally grey. Portraying him as a simple antagonist is a complete misunderstanding of who he is. And that's the whole paradox. Marvel hides him while also wanting us to understand the extent of the danger he represents. Except that it's not really a paradox. Yes, unlike Thanos, he still hasn't appeared yet. And the audience loves villains. So Marvel thought of something much more subtle by taking inspiration from George Lucas. That's why he's the GOAT, the GOAT. Remember, in the prequels, we already knew the ending. Anakin is going to become the greatest villain in pop culture. It's inevitable. And the kind Senator Palpatine, everyone knows he's the evil mastermind, the Sith Lord Darth Sidious. Well, everyone except the other characters, and that adds unmatched drama. We know, and I think that's what's happening here. MCU fans have never met Doom, so they use marketing to make us understand the threat before the movie even starts. We're going to see the characters get manipulated, knowing where it leads. Yes, incursions are the threat, but the real threat to the multiverse and our heroes is Doom, because we actually need to zoom out. No, this isn't the very first trailer we've had. The post-credits scenes from Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four were the first glimpses of the movie. Scenes that will most likely be in the Doomsday movie. scenes shot by the Russo brothers themselves. But above all, last December, Marvel gave us 4 teasers. And the Russo brothers told us these aren't just simple teasers, but stories, clues. And they urged us to pay attention. That's why, to really decipher this trailer, we're going to start here. Because they're like a code to solve a puzzle. They're the key. And above all, this trailer might not be the only one this week. A Russian leaker, who seems very well informed, appears to be telling us that a second companion trailer could be released during the Marvel panel. The leaker, who has reportedly already released images from this second trailer and a very detailed description. Don't worry, we'll save that for the end. In the meantime, let's focus on this trailer, Steve the Exile. As I was saying, we're going to use the first 4 teasers to decipher this trailer, starting with Steve's. At the time, it was pretty clear. For everyone, it was clear that this teaser took place across several time periods. But not only that, also in several locations. We start with Peggy's house at the end of Endgame. Chic suburban atmosphere ending in a country house. 2 places, 2 eras, but maybe even 2 universes. At least that's what My Time to Shine Hello has claimed since last February. According to her, Steve and his family were moved by Loki into the Fantastic Four's universe. A universe where they don't exist, where they can live in peace. And how do we know it's really Steve? Well, this sequence is the only one with such a warm color grading, similar to his own teaser. Obviously, you noticed he's wearing a wedding ring, the same one as in his teaser, and it was indeed Loki who brought him there. We see him in this trailer, clearly present, wearing the same outfit he wore in season 2 of his series. We see a man holding his TVA card with his likeness on it. And no, at no point in this series does such a card exist. But if you haven't been following, Loki acquires the ability to travel through time and the multiverse, and takes the opportunity to study it thoroughly for centuries. So he was able to develop this device for Steve, probably because he knows what's coming. And that's what explains his presence on the Fantastic Four's ship when he meets Thor. Yes, Steve is probably on the Fantastic Four's Earth, and the very first part of the movie will most likely show us what happens after the post-credits scene from First Step, with Doom and Marvel's first family going to find the former captain. Because first of all, they need him. He's the outsider in their universe, one of the reasons for its balance, but most importantly, he's the one who can convince the heroes from his original universe to help them solve the multiversal crisis. So he leaves his family and joins them to save them and to save his world once again, one last time. Well, many of you have mentioned the shadow behind Steve, suggesting that it could be his son. However, when we brighten the scene, everything suggests that it's simply Johnny. Look, blue and white jacket and blue pants. So I don't think Steve took his son on this adventure, which isn't necessarily good news. By leaving him in the 828, he's probably putting him in great danger, at the mercy of a vengeful Doom. Some think this Steve might be Captain Hydra. I don't believe that's true. That doesn't mean he won't submit to Doom at some point in the movie. Let me clarify. Without going into all the details here, if we follow the leaks, Doom would personally blame him for the death of his own family. A motive for revenge that deserves a whole chapter on its own. Actually, there's already a full video on the subject, and I encourage you to go watch it as soon as possible if you're interested in the topic. A revenge that could push Doom, according to some leaks, to finish off Steve's son right before his eyes in the second part of the movie, maybe forcing that very submission. So yeah, it's hardcore. Even I have trouble believing it. But with the map leak being real, anything's possible now. Let's get back to this scene. We're in space. Thor seems out of breath and stunned to see his former companion. Around him, an empty ship with red lights that seem to alert the crew to a problem. It seems that a fight took place between him and the Fantastic Four, and that Steve was the one who managed to stop everything. So his role is already useful. Anyway, I clearly think this scene takes place in the first part of the movie. It follows the post-credit scene of the Fantastic Four and comes just before the Thunderbolt scene. But let's move on to our second teaser. Thor, the Eternal God. In his teaser, we see Thor praying to Odin, the All-Father, to give him the strength to defeat an enemy. And that's not all. We also see this adoptive father of eternity at his bedside. Remember, in Thor, Love and Thunder, Thor manages to convince Gorr to use his wish with eternity to choose love over hate. Gorr then chooses to resurrect his daughter, who becomes the reincarnation of eternity. A cosmic entity that represents the universe, or maybe even the multiverse. In this teaser, she seems to be suffering, and this could be explained by the exponential death of the multiverse. Thor must therefore save his daughter, which explains why he is back on Earth with the Avengers. As I was saying, I think the scene in the ship takes place between the 2 post-credit scenes. In the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, the new Avengers satellite detects the entry of a multiversal ship into the atmosphere. So I imagine at that moment, Thor intercepted the ship and entered it. Yes, it's a multiversal threat. He might think that's the reason for Love's illness, but in this, he trusts Steve, and together, they head to the new Avengers Tower. The Thunderbolt post-credit scene mentions a disagreement between Sam and Bucky, but together, they manage to put their differences aside to welcome these multiversal travelers. Out of the ship come the Fantastic Four, Thor, but probably also Dr. Doom and Steve. I think that's actually why Sam, Bucky, and Ant-Man have that look on their faces. Sam and Bucky last saw an old Cap and are having a hard time believing it. As for Ant-Man, he might have his own reason for that look, which we don't know yet. Because if you didn't know, Avengers Endgame will be re-released in theaters next September in a modified version with 7 extra minutes of footage under the name Avengers Endgame again. 7 minutes that will connect Endgame to Doomsday and should not only include scenes from Cap's mission, maybe the scene with Loki, but also a conversation between Steve and Scott about Captain's plans. Ant-Man, that's something we don't know, because let me remind you that he knows about Kang and the multiversal threat. If Cap is there on that ship, it probably means things are more serious than expected. In this shot, we can actually see them facing Steve's silhouette. The next scene shows us all the teams gathered for a briefing by Reed Richards. Well, obviously Steve and Doom aren't in this scene so as not to give too much away, but actually, they are there. They've been erased. We can see the new Avengers on the left, with Bob hidden on the left, and on the right the Avengers, to which we can add at least Shang-Chi and probably others who haven't been announced yet.
So now there are 2 of them.
Finally, in the background, the Fantastic Four and the erased Doom. The board shows us several very interesting elements. First, the center with the 3 worlds. It clearly picks up on the idea from Reed Richards' briefing at the beginning of Time Runs Out, except that in the comics, Reed explains the concept of a dying multiverse with parallel worlds. Here, it's simply the last 3 worlds that are connected. The Avengers' Earth, 616, the Fantastic Four's Earth 828, and finally the X-Men's Earth 10005. At the bottom left, we can see a countdown. It represents the time they have left before the end. A countdown that should set the pace for the whole movie. On the left, the 3 cores of these worlds, and on the right, probably the devices that the Fantastic Four and Doom plan to install on each world to prevent the end of the multiverse. But here, we see that everyone is turned toward Thor. And that's not for nothing, because the God of Thunder is the one who sets the pace for 3/4 of this trailer with a speech. It's crazy, it's really Thor who's highlighted throughout the trailer as the one speaking. We barely have anyone else, but we have no one else speaking, it's just Thor. And no, not the whole trailer. As you pointed out to me in my reaction, and I thank you for that, Thor describes the threat they're dealing with, a threat they seem strangely familiar with. He says that he has known warriors who fell to enemies and threats that scared him much less than this one, and that they need to put their quarrels aside in order to survive together, because not everyone will make it back. Well, you already know that. We're in a typical scene with groups arguing over trivial things, distrust and cheap shots everywhere. It's like Avengers 1 before the helicarrier attack. And Thor, the most experienced Avenger in the room, steps in to restore order. From now on, everyone has their own affiliation, their own mission, and that's where we enter the world of the X-Men. Mutants for years. As usual, we started this chapter with the 3rd Doomsday teaser to be revealed, the one about the X-Men. An empty school in ruins, sometimes even on fire. Charles and Magneto together, worn out, tired, and these words.
Death comes for us all. The question is, who will you be? When you close your eyes.
Because yes, the X-Men in this movie are doomed. According to the oldest X-Men, they tirelessly try to save their universe from numerous incursions. They destroy universe after universe in an attempt to survive, to the point of damning their souls. And this speech by Magneto is surely from a totally crazy movie opening. Because here is yet another leak confirmed by many sources. The movie will open with the destruction of Tobey Maguire's universe by the X-Men, including in particular a fight pitting Deadpool and Wolverine against Tobey and his enemies. But new leaks have appeared since then. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned this Russian insider who revealed many images. His name is QQ Byte. He claims, based on some AI-altered images to avoid detection, that Magneto, not Wolverine, will cause this universe's destruction. Ian McKellen actually admitted it himself during an interview. He destroyed New Jersey, the state neighboring New York. That explains the state of this world. A wounded world that has seen many battles, fights from which not all mutants returned. But the survivors keep fighting. The trailer starts with this observation. Charles, at the window, watches his mutants destroy another Earth, probably Toby's, and he suffers, probably because he is the most powerful telepath in his world. And the extinction of billions of beings is unbearable. By the way, the sound design at this moment is simply terrifying. And on top of that, Doom's voice prepares us for the worst with an unthinkable decision, the one the X-Men make over and over again. In fact, maybe they're the ones responsible for some of these misfortunes. But this school is also the place of Marvel's biggest lie. Yes, half of the trailer takes place here. In its hall, its gardens, its hallways, but probably never at the same time. Let's go back to the Avengers Tower. Following Thor's speech, teams are forming, and one of Cubite's leaks shows us the team heading toward 10,005. So, how do you say? Hard to say. Either through Incursions, or via Doom's technology, or America Chavez. Here we can see Reed, Yelena, Captain, and Shang-Chi, but also a strange character. It's not Doom, but one of his emissaries. And that too comes from a leak too. Doom would be surrounded by several emissaries, similar to him, masked but different. But that's not all. There will also be some sorcerers and sorceresses who will also wear a mask and an outfit. That's actually what we can see right now at Comic-Con. In this case, I think most of them will be Doombots. Robots so similar, so well made that it's hard to tell the difference. That could be what we see in the Fantastic Four's post-credit scene. Maybe it's a Doombot with Doom's face. And maybe that's why Franklin touches him. Thanks to his powers, he senses some humanity in him, and that's also why this mask is so different. Anyway, this team goes, sorry, into the X-Men universe, and they enter an empty school. Reed tries to stop Sam from getting involved to let this new rookie take the risks instead of them. But Yelena, she goes in, and she faces Mystique, who transforms into Black Widow. Then a fight breaks out. Gambit versus Shang-Chi, but also Reed versus Diablo, as his actor hinted, and Sam versus Cyclops. A fight that will inevitably stop at some point and lead to a discussion, especially when Charles senses that the intruder's intentions are not hostile. Other leaks, which we'll talk about later in a very spoiler-heavy section, show us that all these characters will eventually get along. Don't worry. But then, what about Thor versus Doom in all this? Because yes, the two of them really do fight in the school gardens. Well, it doesn't happen at this point at all. You'll understand very soon because it's time to switch to the other team. Meeting between three worlds. We finished this overview with the last teaser, the one involving the Wakandans, the Fantastic Four, and Talokan. In this teaser, it was quite difficult to really understand where we were. An empty desert where an aquatic people had ventured? Weird. Here, it's a bit clearer. Now, Shuri is walking toward the new Avengers Queen Quinjet in a desert area. Sure, but it's surrounded by a huge wall of water. As if it were neutral ground between Wakanda and Talokania, who still seem to be in contact, as proven by the blue vibranium on Shuri and M'Baku's costumes. There is indeed a pyramid in the background that we saw in the first teaser, but we are not in the characteristic depths of the Atlantean city. Here we can see a team made up of Sue and Ben for the Fantastic Four, and Falcon, Bucky, Ghost, and John. They come to meet the two peoples who possess vibranium, probably with the goal of building the machines capable of saving the three universes. Obviously here too, things go sideways. Classic superhero movie stuff. But Sue is here for a good reason, for her diplomatic skills, to try to convince one of the most complex rulers there is, Namor, which will probably earn her the respect of Shuri and also of Namor. She's the badass. Well, let's not forget Doom in this story either. Here too, some gaps seem to be hiding other participants from us, and Doom and Namor have always had a relationship built on mutual respect. Both know that sometimes you have to do what must be done. And I think Namor will choose his side, an alliance that will be important for what's to come, whether it's through Shuri or Namor. By the way, Shuri's words in the teaser are very interesting.
A king has his duties, preparing our people for the afterlife. I have mine.
Since she's the one who will help the heroes while M'Baku will prepare his people for life after death. Well, we've covered all 4 teasers. But you say we're definitely missing something. Yes, we've talked a lot about Doom even in the scenes he wasn't in. And it's time to talk about his own scenes, his aura farming in this trailer, the betrayal of Doom. As I was saying, Dr. Doom is a complex character, intelligent, a strategist, manipulative. But this trailer only seems to show us an animated character, a character with unstoppable brute strength. That's simply because, as I was saying, he's lying to you. And for that, it's time to enter the famous Giga Mega spoiler zone. Because we're going to talk about the huge leak that should be about the famous second trailer that Kevin Feige has in store for us at Comic-Con. A leak that's not only detailed, but also comes with images that are supposedly taken from this upcoming trailer. Alright, here's what it says. The trailer opens with Dr. Doom sitting on his throne in Latveria. Just like the poster revealed by Marvel, in his castle, there's a tapestry depicting his wife and his son. He then declares, "My wife was killed because of you." From there, a new shot shows Thor and the Fantastic Four arriving at the new Avengers Tower. Steve greets Sam and Bucky, and Reed explains that they have less than 24 hours to stop the Incursions. Steve then meets Yelena and tells her that Natasha was like family to him. We clearly see both ships leaving, one of them with Doom's emissary. Then the real fight between the Avengers and the mutants begins, as explained earlier. Then, the Baxter building, where Magneto is injured and Gambit stares at Mjolnir. Yes, the mutants are there. In one scene, Reed faces Doom shouting, "Riley for me!" We see Loki again in a TVA uniform, followed by a bloody hand in the familiar TVA corridors. Thor confronts Doom again, and the scene of the Avengers, X-Men, and Fantastic Four facing Sentinels, which had leaked before and didn't look very good, appears. End title. The trailer ends with Doom staring intently at Steve, while Sentinels rise up, reactivated by the magic of the Latverian king. Black screen. Doom concludes in voiceover, "One day you will forgive me." Damn! Oh. Chills. Admit it, that's awesome. I'm telling you, I believe in it. 200%. Because it makes sense. Yes, because during the famous mission of the two teams, we didn't talk about Steve and Thor's mission. According to many sources, and according to this one too, both of them went to look for Loki at the TVA and only found death there. So, the death of the god of stories. And I don't know about you, but when I saw that the only images of Loki were the ones dressed in TVA clothes handing the card to Steve, I instantly thought that these leaks were true. Doom has already been there, massacred the members of the TVA and went to rip out Loki's heart to steal his powers. And that's where everything changes and we get into the theory. While most of the teams are organizing to try and save the multiverse, Thor and Captain realize they're dealing with an imposter. So they go to confront him. Remember, I mentioned earlier those emissaries of Doom, masked, looking like him. Well, I think the Doom who stayed on Earth with Sue isn't actually the real one. It's a Doom bot. The real one is actually under the emissary's mask, and then he reveals his true face. Once again, it's a bit like in Star Wars Episode 1 with Princess Amidala. Using his magic and runes, he lifts the remains of the Sentinels from one of the many battles the X-Men fought in the past and throws them at the heroes. Meanwhile, Thor goes to face him, but gets beaten. Yes, the special effects in this scene from the trailer are really weird, but that's normal. A lot of things are hidden. No, Doom didn't do it barehanded. He used his runes. We can actually see it on his glove, a rune we've seen everywhere. Above his throne, in the holographic projection of Shanghai, in the Cubite leaks. Yes, that really ugly scene was real. I was wrong. Doom is here to retrieve something and he's going to create chaos that will destroy Cyclops. And that's how I see what happens next. I think he'll then retreat to Latveria, probably in Universe 828. And it's also here that all the surviving Avengers, Fantastic Four, and X-Men will regroup to come up with a plan with that famous leak showing Magneto and Gambit in front of Mjolnir. It's also here that we find Thor praying to his father to give him Odin's strength and probably an army to go face Doom on his home turf. And guys, with all that, for me, we'll only be halfway through the movie because I'm convinced that the second part of the film will show us this battle. A battle that might end badly since Doom is going to destroy the multiverse and create his Battleworld. By the way, I think the shot of Johnny holding Franklin in his arms is from that moment. Doom planned everything, keeping everyone from the 828 universe so he could return and capture Franklin to help with his plan. When they return to the Fantastic Four universe, neither Franklin nor Steve's son can be found, and that's also why they all fall into his trap. That's how the third act begins, on Battleworld, showing us the new world under the rule of God Emperor Doom, where no one remembers anything except for a few loyal followers, including Strange and a few magic users he had under his wing in Latveria. Wanda, Clea, Sylvie, or whoever you want. Because yes, my friends, I told you, I'm at Comic-Con, and some costumes are already on display. Notably that of a witch in Doom's outfit, with a smooth mask. That can't be a coincidence. I'm telling you, the post-credit scene of the Fantastic Four doesn't show us the real Doom. And actually, I recorded that a few weeks ago. Anyway, that's how I see things happening today. I could be wrong, but everything seems to fit. Alright, and you tell me, did you manage to spot my theory and Dr. Feige's manipulation? Or did you also see it all coming weeks ago? Guys, if you enjoyed this video, I really invite you to follow me and watch this one about the true origins of Doom. I'm sure you're going to like it. I'll see you again very soon for a new video. In the meantime, don't forget to stay curious. That's the secret to being happy. Bye.